That's the recording. We are unmuted, aren't we?
We are now.
Yeah. Before we call to order, we need our secretary.
He's printing off agendas.
Is he? We'll wait.
My laptop says 5:59. So,
Yeah. Mine does too. But not much longer.
I'm great.
It says it's coming up. Here he comes. Right, recording secretary having arrived.
Yeah.
Recording. And everybody's here who wants to be. So let us call the meeting to order at about 6. There is at least one addition to the agenda. Shared services agreement for the DOT. Which you okay doing at the end? We can't see it, do it earlier.
Do we have a deadline for submitting applications for the planning board seat? Was there a deadline attached to that? When?
May 15th.
May 15th?
That's right.
Okay,
We put that in the newsletter, I believe.
okay.
Mhm.
I was going to suggest another topic, but I don't know if we have time for it. But a few people have raised the idea of organizing community forums. So if there's time, can we put that at the end of the agenda?
Sure.
And if not, we can, I don't want us to go over because of that. So we can.
If it doesn't work, if it doesn't fit in the time allotted, we can.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about the James?
Yes, Luke, can we remove that from the agenda? Shane contacted me today and said he's just not quite, this is the agenda item related to feasibility study for land development on Shane Spence's property.
Yes.
He contacted me and just said he's not quite ready right now. He's dealing with something.
Okay.
I have one question. Do we know when the EV charging station is going to be put up over there? Do we
No,
have any idea?
I know what we are
I'm putting together an RFP.
Okay.
for that. She's talking about the charging station.
They've got to go on the other side.
Yeah,
So we've got to dig up the.
yeah, I know. I need to know because I've got like 13
Plants.
flower and quince that are wanting to get me. They're like.
Yeah.
And I wanted to wait until the EV charging station was in, so I knew where they were.
Yeah.
Digging, that's all. So was it like in a month or two?
So
Yes.
we're waiting, yes, it looks like, because we're still waiting on the final approval from the.
Okay, all right. I'll talk to him as much as. I
It's
can.
amazing how long these things stretch out, but it's,
All right.
I thought we were good to go, but when I checked,
Yeah,
we're still waiting on the final approval.
okay.
So we got the shared services agreement. And. Community meetings. Yeah. Anything else? Okay. Then we are at privilege of the floor. Is there anyone who would like to address the board on any subject? Julie? Yeah, it's either that or pull up a chair because.
I used to microphone.
You're probably fine if you're proximity to that.
I am gonna try really hard to keep this to 3 minutes, because I respect everybody's time, and I'm late for work. I have 2 issues, and also my views reflect mine and mine alone, not my family. I have 2 issues here that I want to talk about. First is the contentious special events law. A special events law is by very definition outside of the regular activities of any business or person. Any attempt to craft a law to enable business practices that are otherwise outside of zoning laws is dangerous and wrong. Board members have claimed this law is being crafted for each and every town member. The urgency and timing say perhaps otherwise, but if that's true, perhaps that's why it's gone through at least 5 wildly varying iterations of the past month, with the events being allowed ranging from 4 to 106, now 12. and the number of attendees ranging from 100 to apparently unlimited to 500 and now specified based on acreage. These fluctuations alone prove that this is nowhere near ready to enact. Also allows the permit holder to measure their own decibels. Who's going to enforce that? Who's going to count vehicles? I urge you to take your time getting input and crafting a proposal that makes sense for everyone. And get on with other matters. Second thing, I'm observing a growing escalation of hostility towards specific people in Danby who, by standing up for their rights to live in peace, are being vilified. These are good, helpful people who supported South Hill Cider and tried for years to propose compromises like turning the speakers away from the neighborhood, who politely repeatedly asked to put forth loud concert in the week for the 10th week in a row, having speakers turned down, and like me, halfway down the Apple Road, I can hear it inside my house with the windows closed. Those requests were ignored repeatedly. Valid complainers are now being belittled as bitching, and good complaints are being paid as Karens, or the complainers, which I was called yesterday, or worse, and people have been subjected to hateful comments and even threats, simply for standing up for our right to live in peace in a rural neighborhood we purposely chose because of its zoning. Wanting our neighbors to abide by laws that were in place when they set up shop is not an extreme view. Those requests to compromise were ignored, proposed solutions were ignored until a lawsuit was forced to be brought up, and that was brought up because the town board was negligent in enforcing zoning laws. We've gotten used to having zoning laws broken for years, much to everyone's enjoyment, because who doesn't love hanging out on a summer evening drinking whatever booze happens to be made there while some band plays in the background. Oh, wait, you say those bands aren't just bands of the well-known agricultural products known as Dawn of the Buffalo and Driftwood, because making cider on a small parcel in an agricultural zone obviously means headliner concerts. The town should have nipped the escalating number and volume of events in the bud when it started to get out of control years ago, but you didn't. Instead, forcing neighbors to take legal action, and now we have this hornet's nest to deal with. I urge people who want to take sides to at least take the trouble to learn the facts of the case, set aside your bias, and understand the underlying laws here. I see at least 3 letters in support of South Hill Cider in the record tonight. Those people want to support South Hill Cider, hooray, by all means do so, by buying some of their products, bringing your friends to tastings, enjoying the sunset from a picnic table. But I urge people to stop viewing South Hill Cider as a victim of hostile neighbors. If they're a victim of anything, it's of their own duplicity in applying for a cidery permit when they really intended to run the place as a concert venue. I apologize, I have to go to work, I can't stick around, thank you.
Thanks, Sheila.
Thanks, Sheila.
Anyone else? Okay.
Hi. Let me start out up here. I came in today because I want to give you all a quick demonstration of a practical application of sound attenuation. But I have a couple of quick comments that I want to make first. Left my notes at home, so I'm just doing it quickly. I heard discussion about perhaps making the town's right to farm law conform to ag and markets law. And I would advise very, very, very strongly against that. In fact, what you would be doing by that is allowing ag and markets department, whose interests are not those of the town, to be making decisions for the town. What is ag and what is not? I think the town should make its own decisions about that. Do not tie it to ag and markets law. The rest of this is about the special events law. First comment, I'm sure you're going to hear a lot of stuff about how many cars and how many people. And I think the thing that's missing from there is the phrase off-road parking. If you're going to have 200 cars, 99 cars for an event on a 1 acre lot, and they're going to rely on road parking, that is bad news. There's a safety issue for sure, but it's a pain in the neck for all concerned. Off-road parking, in other words, your numbers, you can argue about the numbers, but they only are really meaningful if it's off-road capacity. There was one section in there about sound, and it was written in the future tense in the new version. And it says, if there will be, but how do you know that? That's just a wording problem, but you really have to say, these are the rules of how it's measured. This is what's required. And if there's a chance that you can go from there. finally, I did hear, if I understood correctly at the last meeting, there was a comment about some ridiculously low percentage of the town who is against or who is in favor of this noise law. Well, I really, really hate to mention the name Richard Nixon and Spiro Agnew and what Spiro used to call the silent majority.
Yes.
I'm not going to say that there's a majority of this town who wants a noise law, who is pissed off at the noises. But I'm going to say there are a lot of people you're not hearing from. What you're hearing from are the partisans on both sides. It's the people in the middle that matter, and it's their quality of life that they're protecting. And finally, the demonstration part. This was actually prompted by something that, just an offhand phrase from Mark in an email conversation, where he said to me, I understand the science, the science that you're describing about how sound is generated makes sense, but I don't really have a gut feeling for it. And so that's why I figured we ought to have a demonstration. I'm now sitting about 1 meter away from that microphone. And whatever number you use for what is for decibels for conversation, I'm talking at about 55, maybe 60 decibels. At 1 meter is the standard measurement. It would be a different number if you measured it at 1 foot. What I fear is that you don't have a gut perception of the result of the numbers. The numbers make sense, right? But the result of it. So I'm going to do a demonstration. I'm going to do some walking while I'm talking from here out to the back and then back to the front. From here out to the back, we're talking about what you think in your head is going to happen. But when I'm out there and coming back, we're going to talk about what really, really happens. So Joel, if I may.
And you may, because Ted and I spoke earlier, so I'm accommodating additional time for your demonstration.
Okay, the numbers work out. I'm not going to be exact. I'm 3 feet, not a meter from Joel. And if I'm talking at 55, 60, you have to ask yourself, is this acceptable? Open a window. Is this acceptable if you have somebody talking at this level, at this distance from you on the inside of the window? Maybe yes, maybe no. But what you expect, pardon me, if this doesn't work quite the way I was hoping, go to 6 feet. And the recording on the Zoom is actually probably going to amplify the effect of what I'm going to be talking about. I'm now back at 6 feet. It's gone down. I've doubled the distance. It's gone down 6 decibels. So if I was at 56, I'm now at 50. Let's double it again, pardon me. Where's 12? 12 feet. So now double the distance again, and now you're down another 6 decibels. Let me go another 12 feet. That would be 24. And so now if I keep talking at this rate, you would say, that's really not too bad. I think you could say that. That's what you're expecting to be happening. Now, on the other hand, when you write a law that says 65 decibels at the property line, what you're saying is, you're saying irrespective of where the sound came from. Well, if I kept doubling this distance now, I could have 100 decibels sound, which would have attenuated to 65 decibels right here. Now I'm going to raise my voice. I'm going to raise my voice up to 65 decibels, and I'm going to walk towards you. The thing is, when the sound came from far away, by the time it gets to your table, it's still going to be 64 decibels. It's going to be just as loud as this. And I think that not one of you, let alone the residents of the town, want to be seeing 64 decibels at their window. So really, yeah, you can measure. If I had a little chat with Joel about this. You can measure at the property line. It's not waste of time, but it's not useful. What you're really doing, you should be measuring where the person perceives the action to be happening, which of course is at their window. And 65 decibels is not a reasonable measure at that point. You know, I don't want to have a long discussion. I would probably suggest 40. Some people might say 30. I actually measured the inside of, measure. Yes, don't move because it'll hear every little finger tap. I measured my house. I'm running about 30, 35 inside the house or on the inside of the window. Or whatever number you pick, you have to measure it at the window. And now you're gonna say, well, not all windows are the same distance from the property line, and that is absolutely true. Once upon a time, Danby had a setback of 50 feet from the property line. You weren't allowed to build closer than that without a variance. You don't anymore, and as anyone could easily point out, people didn't sometimes bought houses that had been built before the zone. But in whether they built it closer or whether they bought it closer, they understood they were getting pretty close to the property line. So I'm just gonna say, you can argue numbers. Less, I don't think would be a good idea, more might be. If you set a standard, I'm gonna measure at 50 feet from the property line. And I'm gonna measure for a realistic number, I'm gonna suggest 40 decibels. That would be an adequate way to achieve what you're trying to do, which is to protect the peace and quiet of the people who are subjected to noise. At the same time, if you wanted to introduce a standard of 65 decibels at the property line, I got no problem with that, because that protects the rights of your neighbor who really should be able to have a reasonable conversation at the property line at 65 decibels. But what that does not protect, and which the current law, I gotta say this right, it does not protect me, the neighbor, from a very loud event on the next property over. Because if you measure 65 at the property line, it could be 110 just far enough away. That's the problem. There's no simple answer to this, and I encourage you to follow the science. By the way, I don't know if you can see this, but it's now measured. If I keep talking, it's saying 45. I'll raise my voice to where it was before, and it's going to be, obviously, this is not working.
39.
Worked very nicely at home. It was free. What can I say?
Yeah, right.
Well, thank you. This belongs here.
Yes.
Thanks. And you'll forgive me, I'll listen a while, but I'll go home because frankly, you can hear it better at home on Zoom than you can in this room.
So we're told. Gary.
Yeah, I have a couple of quick comments. I know all of you read the South Hill Danby webpage and the conversations that have been going on there. I'd like to thank Mark for taking the opportunity to at least try to explain what's going on with this. And from what I understand from listening to TED Talk and the conversations, we're talking about two different things. You're talking about a noise law and you're talking about a special events law.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the noise law, we haven't discussed at all. And that's been turned down a number of times. And obviously, you all knew that or know that most of the majority of the people in town do not want that. But the special events law, I think, maybe we could limit the number to the events that Steve has. I mean, I hate to just pick on Steve, but, and maybe the amplifiers could be toned down. Maybe the neighbors, I've been up there, I've been to the concert. I've sat up on King Road and listened to it. Yeah, you can hear it. I didn't find it offensive sitting in the car listening to it. But like I said, I'd like to thank Mark for at least bringing it and trying to answer some of the questions, because I think some of the people on the webpage or that page were confused. And just like Ted said, he mentioned noise law and he messaged special events too. It's two different things. That's all I had to say. And one other thing, if you do something like this, who's going to monitor it? I mean, in there it says something about self-monitoring. Who's going to write themselves a ticket if noise goes over, if there's over 100 cars or 200 cars? Who's going to, take care of the traffic going in and out? I mean, is the town going to appoint somebody, hire somebody to do all this? Calibrate the decibetometers? Or there's a lot of questions. And that's all I really have to say. I just wanted to thank Mark for trying to explain some of this on the page.
Thank you, Gary. Anyone else? Mr. Sealing? Would that be? Okay.
Thank you all again for all the service you do here. Appreciate it. I'm not reading from one thing. I'm just kind of pulling it out. So apologies if I seem a little disorganized. First, I want to lighten things up with a little positive news. I was in the orchard today, beautiful day, looking at all the blossoms, and decided I would try and estimate how many numbers of blossoms there were and feeding the bees. And by my estimate, there were somewhere between 10 million and 100 million flowers in my orchard today, which I never tried to put that in numbers before that, but that's pretty astounding. And we all know that the impact flowers have on pollinators and how important things are like that. So agriculture isn't just about growing and selling products. It has many positive impacts beyond the actual products and income that the farmer gets. Also, we planted a bunch of pears, and I'd like to introduce the term pears for your heirs. If I'm sure some people are familiar with that term.
Mhm.
Pears take a while to mature, but the heirs will enjoy them hopefully. I submitted some comments earlier today about the noise law, but then had some more thoughts, and so I have two more points. And one says there's a trigger is any sound that's above ambient sound levels that's generated by amplification. And that seems pretty unreasonable that anything above ambient sound would trigger a special event law. I don't know if that's what was intended. And also ambient wasn't defined in there. So on my first reading, it seemed, it was not easy to understand that. Also past sunset was added, which seems like a pretty huge change. Before it was an event that happened after 9, was it going to occur after 9 p.m. And I just wanted to point out that sunset is nearly 10 p.m. around the solstice, but it's at 6:29 p.m. on October 4th. And October is, people are outside working, getting things done. I mean, it's still very summer-like often in October. So 6:29 p.m. being considered the nighttime hour seems a little unreasonable. Also, it was pointed out to me that this law is becoming a little bit of a hybrid noise law with all of these noise parameters put in there. So I just wanted to acknowledge that I didn't really look at it that way until someone pointed it out to me. And yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you very much for everything you're doing. Really appreciate it.
Catherine?
Mine has nothing to do with this, just so you know, except to say there is one other thing that I'm hoping that the town of Danby and people who might listen to NPR shows and this and that might have heard, because it does matter and it is about effects on life, that being wildlife. This is bird migration time, and we should be encouraging people as much as possible to turn off or down all unnecessary lights. And in fact, I think we have maybe could go to do something about the very bright LED lights that people are putting out around their houses that are shining. We are losing our night animals, nighttime animals. It was shocking when I heard this. And the migration of birds is for 3 weeks. So that's all. The rest of it you've heard from me, and I hold my opinion.
Thank you. Anybody else have comments that they'd like to make? Okay. There's a whole bunch of correspondence. It's all listed, or most of it is, except for what might arrived today. There's yet more. I'm saying this is not an exhaustive list because things are arriving by the minute.
No, it actually is. I think Blake's been good. This looks.
Yeah,
Yeah, the most recent ones.
yeah,
I think so.
I'm pretty sure.
Kudos to you for keeping up with emails that were coming in an
I
hour.
tried. The last one I saw was from Catherine at 4:03, so if there has been anything submitted after that, I did not get to it, and it will be on the record for next meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We've doubled the length of the agenda by.
No.
yeah. Could I speak a little bit in regards to that?
Sure.
Just as a little reminder for the public, The point of this correspondence is just so that there is some records, mostly for history's sake, of what communications have come into the town. In the past, that has been interpreted very differently. In terms of what counts as correspondence, the town's policy is a little vague in that regard. So a lot of this has to do with my interpretation. In terms of items that are linked, I had the chance to speak with people from the Committee on Open Government. Actually, while I was at the town clerk's conference, which was really, really wonderful. And I got to speak to them, and one of the people said that things that are linked on the, or made public, which does not always in this case indicate linked on the agenda, but things that have a feasible chance of being discussed should be made available. And to that regard, I would like to say that they are. I said this at the last meeting, I've said it at the meeting before that, and so be it, I'll say it for the rest of time. If you have questions, please just come ask. I try and link the ones that I think will be relevant. Not all of them are ones that I know of at the time will be relevant. If people have asked, I'll try and link them. But to that same extent, I would ask that the public please have patience. There are a lot of steps that go into ensuring that correspondences are redacted properly and reviewed properly. I don't want to put anything up that has personally identifiable information or anything else that would be covered under FOIL. My goal is to make sure that correspondences in the way that the public sees them are essentially FOIL ready. And that does not always end up being the case. Longer email chains. Most recently, I just ended up having to copy and paste the body of text into emails or into a giant document. It's a learning curve. I'm learning, and there's no real manual on how to do any of this stuff. So I'm kind of winging it. But aren't we all in a sense? Not the kind of thing you want to hear, but it's the truth of the matter. It's the fact that we're all trying our darndest. We're trying our best. And if you have suggestions, let us know. But otherwise, as always, correspondence is submitted. Anyone who wants to see it is more than welcome to email me after this.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate your efforts to capture for the record. Announcements. We have upcoming at the Memorial Day celebration here for too long. It's what, the 25th, is it?
It is Monday and it is 3 p.m. And I take a little issue with using the word celebration. Sorry, Joel, but it's a memorial of a hard event. So anyway, it's a big deal, and the dedication for the sign will take place at the same event. Come early and then have a chance to see the tent encampment that will is being put up for people to experience, and talk to some of the members of the Sydney camp.
You're mentioning 3 reminds me that the schedule I looked at has it ending with taps at 3, and there's a bunch of stuff that precedes it. All of the ceremonial stuff precedes that. Anyway, it should be, I won't say it's going to be a fun time, a meaningful gathering for those who choose to attend. Anything else?
So it's going to start before 3.
Yes.
After at 3.
Right.
Okay.
The newsletter has it listed as, I believe it says 11, but that's when they, actually 11 o'clock is when the guys will be there to set up the tents. And then they'll have hot dogs and food available, and hope that people will be willing to come in, have a chat with the encampment people.
Right. This is historically appropriate food that's going to be.
Yeah, hot dogs.
Yes. Reports, well, there were some, several in fact, including the supervisor's report, which is posted which is linked, I think, around 5. Because Greg and I were at a meeting before that. Minutes. There are several.
Yeah. I'd like to move the April 7th meeting minutes as written.
I'll second that. You want to do all three at once?
We could do all three at once if nobody has anything specific.
Yeah,
Okay, I amend my motion, that we accept April 7th, April 16th, and April 21st meeting minutes as written.
and I reiterate my second. Any discussion?
All right then, Connors?
Yes.
Dylan?
Yes.
Larkins?
Yes.
Bruce?
Yes.
Gagnon?
Yes,
Thank you.
all right. On to the abstract vouchers for the day.
Okay. I'll move the general fund abstract 10 vouchers 159 through 169 for $15,627.73.
Second that.
I noticed the typo is general fund. Mhm. I think that's my typo too. Any discussion?
Nope.
Okay,
Hold on. This doesn't have any effect on that negative general fund balance that you,
I don't think that's, I mean, no, that's more in the account analysis part than the vouchers, right?
yeah, well, the point of the account analysis is it points up the need to do transfers in order to have the money to pay within the general fund, but we already dealt with that and we'll come back to it, but did you follow Laura's argument?
Well, I think she was saying that the negative in the contingency line was based on us paying a bill that hasn't come due yet. Is that right?
I think
And
that's
that
correct.
was the TG Miller bill. So
Yeah.
it's negative in theory, it's not negative in reality yet.
Right.
So we can do the budget transfer before we pay that bill and we won't have actually gone to the
Right.
negative.
Right,
That's what I thought.
At the next meeting.
Yeah.
yeah,
It just caught my eye that there was some negative.
Yeah.
right, well, which is
Yeah.
true.
Like, what?
Yeah. Right,
All right, Connors?
Yes.
Dylan?
yes.
Larkins?
Yes.
Bruce?
Yes.
Gagnon?
yes,
Thank you.
And I'll move the highway fund abstract 10 vouchers 64 through 72 for $5,656.99.
second. Any discussion?
All right, Connors?
Yeah, yes. I'm like, what?
Dylan?
Yes.
Larkins?
Yes.
Bruce?
Yes.
Gagnon?
Yes,
Thank you.
on to the business, more business. The Danby Seniors Agreement is ready for me to sign. If the board will concur, that's good to go. So I move that you authorize me, although I'm authorized in general, but it's our practice to have board authorizations for these community agreements. To sign the agreement for Danby Seniors for 2026.
I'll second that.
This is for this year, right? I mean, I know
Yeah.
it says 2026, but I just was making sure that I wasn't
Yeah,
missing.
this is going.
But we're in 2026.
Well, my point was more so that we're signing the agreement now that covers the entire year.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know what
Just
year it
so
is.
it's something like.
We have several of these community agreements and to date, we've done Community Science Institute
Right,
and now the seniors. We still need to do Danby Community Park. If there is one, we'll do it for the West Danby Community Association. And the food pantry.
yeah,
All right. Connors?
yes,
Dylan?
Yes.
Larkins?
Yes.
Bruce?
Yes.
Gagnon?
Yes,
Thank you.
we postpone the next one. It brings us to scheduling the next, or the second and closing public hearing for the Community Development Block Grant. This is the 2024 round that is now finishing up. And Greg has crafted a resolution to do this, I think. What did you?
No, it's just the scheduling, the
Scheduling.
second Prior to public hearing.
Yes. So I move that we schedule the public hearing for May 19th
I'll second.
at 6.
And so who come, I mean, that's where people will come and speak about their experiences
Yeah,
with.
positive and negative.
They can or they don't need to, but
Right.
we did this for the last 2 rounds, as we
Right.
we sent a mailer out to everyone and invited them to either provide testimonial in writing, which most people did. I think one person came to the meeting.
Yeah,
Yes,
And so, yes, this is just a requirement that when you're closing out a CDBG, Community Development Block Grant, just have a public hearing to assess how it went. To report to the public what was spent, how many homes were helped in this process. And yeah, and then it's an opportunity, what Danby did was to invite the recipients to give some feedback.
yeah.
So if you'd like, also I can send out a mailer specifically to the 12 homeowners that were awarded.
I think that would be nice to hear.
Yeah.
I mean,
Do it.
need to be careful who you.
well, only if they're happy.
Okay, ready?
All right then, Connors.
Yes,
Or Dylan. Yes. Larkins.
Yes.
Bruce. Yeah. Gagnon.
Yes,
Thank you.
so, Laura has been trying to retire since early in the year. And the end date has been a movable event that started with March and then went to April and then to May and now to June. So she's proposing that that she end her regular employment on June 30th and then be basically a consultant and thereafter for $40 an hour. So since this is something that the board sets the parameters for compensation, I'm proposing that the board endorse that proposal.
What kind of consulting?
Well, basically, they're going to be training whoever, for the most part, to the tasks that are not the sort of irregular things that come up. Not to mention, anytime she needs to be asked, how do you do this? Or so it's,
Can we put a limit on it? Do we have a budget for it?
well,
I mean, and this person that we're hiring, we have a job in the job ops.
right.
So if we hire them in a couple of weeks, that'll give her 6 weeks of training. Do you think
Mhm.
somebody's gonna need more than 6 weeks of training?
Well, I anticipate, Laura's not here to speak to it, but there are going to be things like, you get to the end of the year. And you've got this, the ARPA, closing out the ARPA process for the acquisition of the solar farm, for instance. Well, we know it's coming, but,
Think it will
it
take
might,
more than 6 weeks to train somebody on that?
well, if you think,
yeah.
and I don't, that we can anticipate all the things that are going to come up, that we wouldn't need Laura to chime in on.
Yeah, hopefully.
That's not a bet I would take. Yeah.
Right, well, I guess we're paying Ted. We don't really have a budget for paying Ted. We're gonna pay this other person that
do.
we're gonna hire. We're paying Ted
Yeah, we put a budget,
and we're paying Laura.
yeah,
And we're gonna pay the other, the person that Laura's gonna train,
right.
the assistant. So I'm just concerned about the budget.
Mhm. There's no question that the transition is going to cost us money.
Yeah.
I think it's, I mean, you can't possibly say that it wouldn't be costing us more money than it would you just go on without having to deal with the transition. How much money and whether, the probability that we'll be over budget for the bookkeeper line, high probability. How much? Well, we'll do the best we can, but I don't think it's realistic just to say that, or think that we could stay within the budget. I can't really project. With Ted, who's here, and probably could speak to it.
He's
Uh,
hiding back
is
there.
to, it hopes to introduce some efficiencies that will save us some time. So that particularly for the new hire, well, for Julia and for the new hire, that the sum total will be less than
Yeah.
it would have been for Laura's portion of the budget. So we'll see, but,
I mean, hopefully we won't have to use that too much. And I feel like if we stay on top of it and,
right, and there may be
Right.
efficiencies if we hope there will be, that Ted with his long experience and training with how to make offices more efficient
mm,
will save us enough time that we might come out all right, but
We put some kind of parameters around it, like up to X numbers, or, to be renewed after 6 months, or something, just because I also feel worried about us keeping on track of it. Like, you're barely part-time, and with Laura, you would be overseeing 4 people, including the assistant and a contractor, and that's a lot. Like, being I don't mean supervisor as the elected position, but supervising 4 people is just a lot. So like, I feel like I kind of agree with Mariah, not that we shouldn't have her on as a consultant, but maybe to put some parameters that make
Yeah.
it easier for us to not lose track of just how many hours accumulate or something like that.
Maybe, like 20 or 30 total hours,
Total under the contract.
Total
or
under the
6 months
contract.
Or whatever.
right? Like maybe 20 hours. I mean, she's just gonna be training somebody, right?
providing consultant, I mean, it's training and it's information sharing,
Well, she's got 6 weeks to do that. That we're paying her for.
mhm.
We're paying her, and she's not doing bookkeeping stuff. Ted's doing that.
Well, she's still doing some of the bookkeeping stuff. She prepared the supervisor's report for today, for instance.
So
So,
we're paying Ted to do the bookkeeping.
yeah, he
So in
basically,
the next 6 weeks, or 6 weeks until June 30th,
mhm,
Laura will be training Julia and the new person.
mhm.
And then I would say maybe give her another 20 hours of consulting.
I wish you were here to speak to whether this is going to work or not. I don't know.
and I'm a little worried about the budget also, but I also, Laura's been all these positions, and maybe she shouldn't have been, but, covering all sorts of bases for the town, to be able to say that she can train somebody to do everything she did in 20 hours.
No, she has 6 weeks.
Well, 6 weeks, and in those 6 weeks, you also have to understand that people will be working. It's not, she's just sitting there training people. I mean, so I definitely want to be able to find some way to eyeball the number of hours and either put a cap on it or just visit it every 2 weeks at every meeting.
If you want to, but where I'm coming from is the reality that I've experienced over the course of the last 5 years, which is that our staff are committed to minimizing the expense to the town.
Right.
So, I mean, Laura that's one of the reasons that we had the problem that we had, is that she took on a lot. And she was convinced that she could do it, and she certainly could do it, if not for the fact that any number of things happened over the course of the years that made it really difficult for her to do it. There's one thing after another. And I leaned on her for years. Well, when I took the job, Rick told me there's too much on Laura's plate.
Right.
3 years later, 4 years later, Laura finally agreed that, yeah, it'd be nice to have some help. And Julia was hired. But Laura's not out to, pad her compensation and stretch things out. She's gonna do this as economically as possible.
So what would you cap it at?
Wouldn't cap it. I would I realize it's keeping it open-ended is like, well.
Have you talked to Laura about this?
Well, yes, but, not about how long it's going to take. But she proposed this arrangement to me, I spoke to her twice about it. Today's the version that she reiterated June 30th.
Actually, I was expecting end of May, that's what she last told me.
Yeah, well, yeah, but then, things got stretched out.
Yeah.
I mean, she wanted to quit in March. But then, because the things got stretched out, we're paying the price for having done it the way we did it.
Yeah. Mariah, this is tangential but related. Do you have a sense of when you think you'll be hiring that assistant to the supervisor? Like, cause you said 6
The
weeks, but.
deadline is May 20th for the
Application.
job posting. So I would think by June 1st.
Okay.
Yeah,
So that
give
would give her
you
30
a month or
days
so, right?
Yeah.
Train somebody. And-
Mhm.
I just think we could come up with a way to keep track of, one, asking her to do consulting, like who would be in charge of, have one person be doing that instead of everybody calling her. And to keep track of it. Hopefully we won't need much, but
Well, I think Joel has really come to rely on Laura, and I think having Laura at his beck and call could get out of hand. I would just really like to put a limit on that and have Joel transition to the new people. He's got an excellent bookkeeper. Julia has been here a couple of years now, and my concern is that, Joel's been working with Laura for 5 years and has come to depend on her.
I didn't come to depend on her. I depended on her from the get-go.
Right.
Yeah.
I just, I would really like to see this transition go smoothly. And I think limiting it to some amount of either hours or money would be in the best interest of the town.
well, maybe we could limit it to 20 hours to be looked at the end of every, at the end of 20 hours. Is that enough? Do we want to, because it's also the cycle of the year is different. I mean, different things happen at different times and,
Well, that's kind of what I was anticipating in
that's the
the first place, was that it's going to take a good year really to cover all the bases. And Laura said all along, she's going to be available to be consulted, compensated or not. I mean, she's not going to leave us in the lurch. But I think it's only fair that she be compensated.
well, can we set a time, can we set a limit on the number of hours? At which, at the end of that, it gets looked at again?
Sure.
I don't think it's assuming bad intent for us to have more of a, a firm idea of how much we're gonna be spending in a year. To me, like, that's good.
No, I
practice.
mean, except for people are worried that
Yeah.
Joel is gonna rely on her as he has.
Yeah, I'm
So-
saying it's good for us to
Yeah.
shift to, having a maximum or something like that. I think that's important. Do you think
Yeah.
we should try to figure it out in this meeting, or should we ask Laura to come back with a proposal of like how many hours per month, or maybe it's a 3-month contract that we can choose to renew or something like
Yeah,
that?
that sounds good to me.
I don't know, as a freelancer, I definitely have done that for clients. I'll
Yeah.
give them a proposal, this many hours at this many, not to exceed, and let,
Sure,
without permission
sure.
or something like that.
Normal practice. I concur. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah,
And it sounds like we're in general agreement that we are okay with keeping her on as a consultant, so she doesn't need, we don't need to worry that we're
Yeah.
gonna
Do
say
we wanna-
no.
talk with her, bring it back at the next meeting?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think you with your consulting background maybe could work with Joel on your contracts to get a contract for.
sure.
I think this is all fair and reasonable. And thank you for the suggestion. Moving on, the resolution to designate Bald Hill Road property upland. I think you did write resolution for that one. Pretty straightforward.
Straightforward.
So I move that this beautiful resolution that Greg has drafted for us that basically says, we declare this to be parkland. Any second first? Second,
Second,
discussion. There's a question?
I read somewhere or heard on recording, someone saying that getting rid of that designation would require permission from the state,
Yes, that's
which I
correct.
know to be the case with the park.
Yeah,
So you can obligate
Easy in,
yourself
hard
to
out.
the state just by passing a resolution, or do you have to take some paperwork to them to have it declared a park?
It's a good question. The way I understood it was just that once the town board resolves to dedicate land to park, then it cannot be permitted only to be active in the state legislature. I thought that was also, if the town board can easily just pass a resolution that I put together in 10 minutes, if they just do the opposite.
Right.
Easy in, hard out.
With the park.
Yeah.
It's basically a conservation easement. It's a contract between the
that
state.
land is not owned by the town.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah, well, might, for private entity, probably a more formal process, but it is just as parked. Once we make it parked as if it were, the thing you went through, in terms of being hard to undo. So we're going in deliberately, with understanding that this is pretty much a commitment to have that property be used as park.
I mean, if it's this simple to get into, it can't be much more difficult to get out of. I don't see why the state would get involved, just because you call it a park.
We'll cross that bridge.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
Never cross that.
Yeah. So, let's see, motion made and seconded, any discussion?
I want a video of Zach at the property yelling, I declare this a park. Can we have that as a resolution?
Yeah. I actually did apply for the demolition permit today.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking next week on my birthday, I might take it down.
Your birthday.
Sure, that'd be kind of a fun thing, have a demolition. You do it, a controlled demo, right, with explosives.
Maybe a birthday cake.
Yeah, it's not, yes, with the plum finger.
aren't they funny?
Love it. Connors.
Yes.
Dylan.
Yes.
Larkin.
Yes.
Bruce.
Yes.
Daniel.
Yes,
Thank you.
okay, further consideration of the draft special event law. So,
Something completely different.
yeah,
The audience here want a copy of, please, a copy of.
Oh, we do.
And anybody want a paper copy? Just
Yeah,
show
we're gonna do
a
it
paper copy.
after
we put it at the end.
Okay, you want a paper copy? All right, one.
So, we'll have to screen share because Dr. hasn't seen it. What do you need? You have the most recent version to screen share.
Yes, yeah, I'll share, I'm just gonna, here, go to view settings. Yeah, this is small, hang on.
Not that one. You were there, I just need to make it bigger.
People could move their chairs to see if they want to see.
One.
Kind of hard to see from back there.
So that's.
I see you're trying, but.
Greg, can you just use your trackpad to zoom? Works on this.
Yeah.
There we go. Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, for the moment, I mean, yeah, they can't see us, but that's a big deal.
That's all right. with me.
Yeah.
Not special.
Yeah.
So can give us the pledge.
Yeah,
Like, just to sort of introduce this, this is just the latest version. It has not incorporated all the feedback that we've gotten. The planning board looked at it and gave comments, the BZA looked at it and gave comments. And all of them are not incorporated here. I think I have somewhat of a list. I think Greg has a longer list of all the different pieces of feedback that we still need to incorporate. So this is, I mean, as with all of them, this is still a working draft. We're just sort of trying to come up with some kind of balance in between all the different input that we've received. And special thanks to Warren, who's here, who has given us some of the helpful feedback on the sound measuring. And so thank you. And nice to meet you, by the way, in person. So it also might sort of behoove us to focus on sound measurement if we want to have any sort of more in-depth back and forth with
Yes,
Warren.
it's true.
Yeah. You want me to just to go down things that were added since last time, then.
So what's highlighted in yellow is
Right.
things for us to focus on because it's different than what
Right,
was
so the
before.
first thing is just, usually local laws have a purpose and intent up front. Often the conversation has been, what is the purpose of this law? So why not just sort of make a statement? So just that the purpose of this local law is to allow and regulate large outdoor events in the town of Danby and create a permitting process for such events.
I thought that was in the last version, it wasn't. I thought that was in the
Oh.
previous version, but
No,
yeah. Anyway, good.
So then here, it's just adjusting some of the thresholds for, based on property area, number of people and cars.
Yeah, we've added the number of people because quite a few people have raised, you can't just say vehicles, because you could have 49 buses show up and then you know, be way over. So we added number of people and cars. We also added, Joel, this is to your feedback, at any one time. So we're not, you know, the limit of 100 people is not from the beginning of the event to the end of the event. It's 100 people at a time. That was sort of to clarify what number we're measuring there. And I'm pretty sure from last version to this one, we used to have just the 2 tiers, which was under an acre and then 1 and above. And I think we were getting too caught up and really from 1 acre to 100 acres is just too much to capture. So this is just another attempt of having under 1, 1 to 5 and 5 and above, so that we have a little bit more room in that middle threshold. Which especially I think is relevant to things in the hamlet. Like if we're focusing in the rural zone, we're talking about much larger lots generally. But if we're talking about things that are going on in the hamlet, those lots are more likely to be maybe less than 1 acre or between 1 and 5. So trying to make it more practicable.
So now moving on, you're proposing deleting the 8 hours?
That a few people raised concerns. I can think, I mean, I don't know if I'm supposed to say it or I'm supposed to not say it, but you know, Karthik raised, he said, well, some of my events are about at 8 hours, 8.5 hours. I also met with Sapansky's, who also are talking about maybe doing some types of events. And I think it got me thinking that, like, I don't know what the difference is between a 7-hour event and a 9-hour event. To me, it more matters if it's going past dark as far as how much it's going to impact neighbors. So I thought maybe to simplify it by getting rid of the 8 hours and just focus on dark, although I take your point, Steve, that sunset in winter is 6:30, so maybe that needs to be changed a little bit. But similarly on that B, you know, the Sapansky said some of their events are sometimes until sundown. And so they were concerned that 9 p.m. was overly restrictive in the middle of August. And that was where the switch from 9 p.m. to sunset came, but maybe we're haven't quite found the right.
So it was 9 p.m. before?
It was 9 p.m.
Yeah.
before now. And
Yeah.
the switch to sunset was mostly like, well, 9 p.m. is kind of arbitrary. Maybe we wanted to float with the season, but maybe that's
yeah.
too flexible.
Well, I'm inclined to think 9 was not bad, but.
Maybe we just go back to 9. I don't know if anyone wants to weigh in on that.
No restriction on starting
An outdoor event at 9 o'clock in December, or January.
You really want
I'm
to.
sure there are not gonna be that many people.
Yeah. See?
Right, that's kind of self-regulating, like Leslie
Yeah.
said, you know, when it's cold, but if you're talking dark and sunset are very different, especially in the fall.
This is true.
Dusk is Hours.
long dusk, yes.
I'll leave it at that.
That's true.
Yeah, I guess past the
Yeah.
beginning of sunset or
Sunset's
past the end
kinda-
of sunset.
It's still light for a while after sunset.
Yeah,
Sunset is a very clearly defined number. 6:30.
Yes,
Is that the beginning?
that is a very clearly defined number.
Yeah.
Yeah. 6:31 today, you know, that's it, yeah.
Sounds like from this exchange that maybe going back to 9 p.m. is more clear and firm.
You coming too?
Yeah, I'm just spitballing here. Is there a world in which you use one of those or whichever is later? If you do like sunset or 9 p.m., whichever is later, and that would count for those kinds of like longer hours in the summertime.
Except that I don't think the sun ever sets before, I mean, after 9 p.m.
Yeah,
Not even on June 22nd.
Warren has a stand up.
Yes,
These things are usually figured out by what we all agree is the time is usually push your kids to bed. And when people usually go to sleep, and so that determination between what day hours and what night hours is what's a reasonable expectation of people actually when you start sleeping. So it's usually an hour. It's usually I've never seen a noise wall that took into account sunset or whatever. It's
Yeah.
We all agree that
Yeah.
things should change from that one threshold, which is like 70 dB, like 55, because people are starting to put their kids to bed, or they're going.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I'm brand new here, so I'm not quite sure how this has been debated. Does the town of Danby have a quiet hour?
no. It's always quiet here.
Not always.
We wish.
Just try that one. No, yeah.
I'll just add again, you're not at all considering what the time it might start in the morning.
This is true, yeah, and nor has it ever been suggested that a start time is going to. I mean, how many people can get up at 7 o'clock in the morning to start anything?
Well, if you're gonna have a
With all
special
due
event,
respect,
Yeah.
A music festival might start kind of early.
and to be fair, you know, setup for these things might include mowing the lawn or
Yeah, but the mowing lawn is simply,
logging the,
yeah,
cutting down trees.
Those are all things that are.
they're all allowed
Anyone-
anyway.
That we can do
anytime.
anytime, anyway, yeah.
And it's cold and wet in the morning, yeah. 9 p.m.
Somebody suggesting it back to 9 o'clock.
Yes,
That's my general sense of
Yes.
this conversation.
I mean, when people have complained about, complained about like fireworks and stuff, it's always, the kids were in bed
Yeah.
and,
Yeah,
you know, they got
right.
woken up.
yeah.
Mm.
So what was you have a different D here too?
We do.
There was a previous one, I'm trying to remember, because that didn't seem like it was that bad to me, but.
Well, yeah, again, trying to address different types of feedback that came in. The previous version of D set a specific decibel level that
Right.
if you exceed it, then it's a special event and you need to go to apply for a permit. And then further, there was a decibel level that was the maximum.
Mhm.
Several people submitted comments that said it was confusing that there were 2 decibel levels and it seemed like a mistake. Or, you know, why are there 2 different numbers? Shouldn't they be the same? This was my attempt to make it a little more like obvious or clear by saying if you're gonna have amplified sound that is gonna be higher than the average noise levels at your property line, meaning you're gonna have music that your neighbors are gonna hear, that means it's a special event. That was the attempt here.
Right,
If
right.
this is not better, again, we could go back to the other version. But the idea was not to have a decibel level here and just say average ambient noise, that, you know, this is mowing, this is that. And if you're breaking that level of average noise, then you should get a permit and show that you have a plan for mitigating that. That was the idea.
Couple comments here from relevant people.
2 comments. First of all, if average ambient noise measured at the property line, nobody lives at the property line. And where they live is where it matters. You should be measuring at some space inside the property line. That was the point of my demonstration.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know that it's conflict, but I see in one place you're talking 50 and 70, and in another place you're calling ambient. Which one do you mean?
Thanks, Ed.
Hey,
I think the ambient just refers to the fact that it's something different than what goes on there during the day. This is not, this is, I think, the confusion is that there's a way in which you can take measurements that are decibels above ambient. This is not that. This is literally just the literary use of ambient, saying this is something other than day-to-day noise that would be normal.
Yeah, and I mean, another way of inversing that is if you're gonna host an event that your neighbors will not be able to hear, it's not a special event and you don't need, like, I'm also trying to clarify for people that like, we're not trying to dictate you playing acoustic guitar on your front porch because it will not raise the ambient level at the property line. And I hear what you're saying, Ted. Respectfully, though, I disagree. I think if someone wants to be laying out in the grass at their property line, they are allowed to do that. And well, I mean, seriously, though, I do think, because you're assuming that we only are worried about people inside their house. I don't actually know that that's true. People might want to enjoy their garden or might want to enjoy their front porch, and their garden might be near the property line. I think if I personally believe people have a reasonable right to quiet, and I don't think that only applies inside their physical home. I think people can enjoy their property.
I think you're absolutely right on that. But they have that right wherever they are, at the property line or not. But measuring it at the property line is one thing, measuring where they are is another.
Well, they are, could be at the property line.
If they happen to be, but that's back to what I said earlier. If they want to go closer to the property line and expose themselves to more sound, that's their decision. But there's a point at which the town should begin protecting it. And that is not at the property line, but somewhere inside where people actually build their houses. And for what it's worth, why don't you just define, just say ambient the whole way through? Because the ambient noise level changes during the day and at night. Just ambient, and ambient is pretty easy to measure. Turn off the sound and you've got your ambient. It's
Actually, there's a big problem with ambient, I want to point out.
road noise for one thing.
Well, yeah, Steve,
Ambient noise at a road could be 78, 75 decibels when a car passes by, but not if you're using a long-term time average.
during commuting times, you'd be surprised how it's hard to have a conversation in my front yard.
Yeah.
Steve,
I just
Steve,
want to point out something as someone who hosts events, not who have amplified music. That ambient can be exploited because I can just have my employees mow the lawn during the show. If we were mowing the lawn near the property, or I could have my kids mow the lawn near, and if we were mowing the lawn, that would be the ambient noise. So I just want to point out that should be kind of exploited, that wasn't my point. But then also, I also understand that I thought about this for months, is like measuring things at the property line. I had an issue with that at first, and I'm like, well, it's really at the house or this or that. Then I realized there's something very functional, is I can measure decibels at the property line. I can't measure the decibels inside the property line. And so there is like, that's a very solid.
And it goes well with self-enforcing.
yes, that's a good point.
It does, but the math is so easy. That you can measure it at any point and just, there are online websites that will say, if you measured at this distance, it's the equivalent of that many decibels at that distance. It's no big deal. And again, I'll just say, you should be measuring what you're trying to protect, not some arbitrary point.
Well,
Legally, it's a self-policing thing. The idea is you shouldn't be leaking over whatever you're in control. And so in every outdoor venue in the country, there's law that's, and every venue is regulated, it's all property law. Because that's all a mixed engineer can do. Because they know that if they're going to be in compliance, they'll meet that threshold. And then beyond that, not your problem, right? Legally you can say, if you're measuring it here, I've measured it there because I'm not again. And you can't measure it beyond that.
You came a little after I finished my demonstration. The problem with that logic is that it could be 100 decibels here, it could be 65 at the property line. That 100 decibels, it's going to be 64 when it gets inside the property. It's gonna be 63 when it's on the other end of the property, which is very different. That is not peace and quiet. That's very different from me having the right to walk up to my property line and talk at 65 decibels, because it's gonna be 50 or 40 by the time it gets to the house. It's the distance to the source, between the measurement point and the source, it does.
Yeah, all legal measurements are done in every noise law, structural density and everything. The only way to really manage this in any kind of rational way is at the property line.
And I feel like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, and let's,
He's had his hand up.
yeah,
The only other comment I would make is that you can have a special event that's noisy, and I'm not using amplified sound.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
if I want to have a chainsaw festival.
Yeah.
yeah.
Or horns,
Or
jazz band.
jazz band, there's ways it could be loud, just getting down to the point of defining how loud is too loud.
All three jazz band.
Yes, it can be pretty loud, it's not amplified.
How, as far as sort of the board, how do you all feel about this version of D versus the last one, which had a decibel level? Is this a good change, or should we be going backwards? I don't want back.
So the change here is going from a decibel level to ambient.
To using the phrase ambient, average ambient noise
Mhm.
as a concept, rather than having a decibel level as the threshold for when you are a special permit.
Right, and the way that Warren describes to me is, say, if somebody applied for an event, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was just that I would go out there, well, we should also talk about who's gonna enforce this, but let's say we have a meter, and I would go out there a couple days in advance of the event. And then just take the measurement or two, or a few, just to sort of establish what average ambient is that.
If you're gonna do decibels, yeah.
Oh, so that was the decibels of.
If you were gonna do, that's a management problem. So like if you're okay going out the day before, a couple of times during the day, and then after, that's what's necessary when you do decibels.
Oh, right, okay, so I'm confusing with the two. The two, okay, never mind, so with this, it's not, it's.
No, it's just saying it's because it's louder than normal.
But similarly, if someone was having a regular event that they were determined, that they were saying is not special, you could do what you just described the day before the event, the non-special event, and then measure during the event. And if it is above average, then we would go back to them and say, this actually was a special event. If you want to have this again, you need to get a permit, right? If there was disagreement over whether an event was not special or special.
Yeah, Greg's suggestion that you go out, go out there and measure it before the event is very, very sensible. And it actually doesn't depend on the accuracy of the meter, just the consistency of it.
I think it'd be helpful to have a definition of ambient in here.
Yeah.
In general, you have definitions within the text instead of in the definition section.
It is a definition section.
Is it necessary, you think, to have a definition of ambient, or was it because it's how it's described below and how to measure sound, that it's basically, it's assuming that average is anything, or anything that's not above average is beyond that 70, 55?
If you want to stay away from any confusion whatsoever, you can use words like environment, or you can use other words in the general statement and leave ambient for the specificity of the type of measurement. So if ambient is what's triggering folks, you can try and find a different of the normal daily levels, you know, you can use some other terminology to describe that. If you were gonna go to a decibels of ambient, that's, you know, I shared with Greg that the most legally robust method of measurement is decibels above ambient. It obviates multiple measurements. It just takes more of a time commitment. Have to do that, but it is the more legally robust because you go out and define what a threshold of what ambient noise is, and then you can now very accurately measure decibels above that.
Would you recommend that we go to that, not to change this section D, but to change the maximum that's down in section 4 or 5?
It was an enforcement question. It's like, how do you really realistically want to manage this?
Yes, and I think that's a problem because we don't have, I mean, I think that one of the strengths of this is that it doesn't lean on enforcement, but has a sort of a self-determining nature to the measurement of sound. It says, this is what you think, you measure it. And then, and here's the guidelines for if it's above this, then it's not good, but we're not saying we're going to be standing there with a decibel meter which measurements, because we calibrated the machine, are definitely going to be admissible in court. And so be careful. We're not doing that. We're saying you, the person who is proposing to do this event, get the app for your phone, and that'll suffice for purposes of determining whether you're in the ballpark or not. And I think that addresses the concern we have with the noise law as well, which is that, decibel meters are great. Who's got one? Not the state police, not the sheriff, not the town of Ithaca. Nobody's using these things. So, I mean, if they say, the standard is there, but will it actually be used in court? Probably not. This addresses that and says, well, just because it's not court, legally binding, if you will, doesn't mean it can't be a useful tool for people who are planning events.
I agree, and that's what we kind of got about it. And so that average measurement is very kind. It's really hard to exceed. When you take a 10-minute measurement, decibel, C-weighted decibel measurement over 10 minutes. So to have that average over time, because it's going up and down, is what we consider impulsive noise. It's not steady state. To exceed 70 decibels, you gotta be pretty loud. I mean, I would say that if you go with 70 and 55, you may at some point want to ratchet that up after visiting this, after a couple of events, and you may learn, wow, we're still pissing off a lot of people. You may ratchet those numbers up, but I can say that it's not easy to hit that. I mean, that says it's some sort of safety valve, but it's not like any birthday party or graduation party at King's is gonna fire us. It's hard to hit.
So that suggests what to you?
I mean, that suggests that what we have here in D is good, is usable. And it sounds like from Warren's suggestion that we don't necessarily need to add a definition of ambient, that we're using the common definition, so we're not, it's not like we're using it as a special phrase that has a special meaning. We're using the common definition, and so we don't need to provide our own.
Well, although, a 10-minute average just gives you somewhat, I mean, if you didn't know to do it that way, how would you know what average over what period of time?
In that section 5, it's
In 5.
how sound is measured
Okay.
in this law includes the 10-minute average. That was also something that we added from Warren's suggestion.
Okay,
I want to jump down to section,
well, that's the next thing, right?
well,
No, are you skipping 4?
do you want to just jump to 5, because we're talking about measuring sound, we're sort of on the sound.
Okay.
So 5 is about measuring sound, and then the one that got changed since last time was just that, sort of just right out, compliant noise levels are considered to be 70 decibels C-weighted measuring during daytime hours, or 55 decibels with using C-weighted measuring during nighttime hours. And then there below that, Joel, is like all sound levels under this law shall be measured using C-weighted 10-minute equivalent continuous sound level LEQ 10 LEQ 10 values. Peak measurements shall not be used as the basis for compliance or violation of terminations.
Right, that showed up last time.
So you can blast the chainsaws for 5 minutes, but not for 10.
You can actually blast the chainsaws for 24 hours a day. This is not limiting chainsaws.
Oh, okay. So the horns, it's the horns at peak volume.
Well, those were considerations when we were looking at the sound, at the
I know, it's just not-
noise law, so, yeah. It's like, what about the all night, timber harvesting events?
Is it timber harvest a special event?
No, when we were talking in the noise law, that kind of thing was a concern. So,
Might be
something
a special event.
Yeah, right, but we hope it's not common at least. So how would it be different than last time?
Is it different? The numbers are the same, the language around the numbers
Yeah.
is a little different, right?
Mhm. I suppose.
One more, maybe.
Well, I would agree that with. Well, I would agree that it is difficult measuring over time to build up high averages. My experience doing sound during in concert venues is that it is very easy for the sustained music, whatever it is, to hit those averages. The drums will peak tens of decibels above momentarily, but the average, I mean, I've different rooms in the same event, or different stages in the same event. I've seen them average 85 at the soundboard, which was 120 feet from the speakers. And with all due respect to Steve, I don't think he's going to do that. But things happen. And if you have a band that's really, grooving into it, they will rise to the level.
That to me just says, if you're having a special event and you're coming up with a sound plan, it's on you to make sure you're facing your speakers the right way, to make sure that you're, directing your thing or having hay bales or whatever it is. It's on you as the event planner, organizer, to make sure that by the time those sound waves get to the property lines, they're not above that threshold anymore. And I feel like that, it makes sense to me to put that on the event organizer and say, this is what other people can expect on their property, and if you can figure it out, you can have the event, and if you can't figure it out, then your, next event planner
I think you're right.
Steve?
Yeah, I would agree with that too, and to come back to what Joel was saying, that this isn't about like enforcing one event. This is to give the parameters so that if someone wants to do another event, they better make sure they adhere to all these rules in their previous event. But in terms of decibel numbers, I wanted to point out that for normal limits that are used in a lot of noise ordinances in other towns, 55 to 65 is usually the daytime limit of what is considered a normal sound. So 70 is only 5 decibels more than the high limit of what people consider normal sounds. So to me, 70 seems low. It's 5 decibels different. And what a lot of towns use as their like normal level.
As
So
I've learned from many YouTube videos, measuring in decibels is not the same as measuring in inches or feet, because it grows exponentially, right? So as you're getting more, the difference between 1 and 5 is not the same as the difference between 65 and 70. It's like exponentially. So I'm not the expert, but that's sort of how we came up with it. Originally, we had a slightly lower number, and we bumped it up by 5, which I came to understand was sort of within the realm of what people thought was, okay, I can put up with it for one night for this one special event, but it's, it's above ambient levels.
6 decibels is considered a doubling of the sound pressure level. Not necessarily perceived that way, but.
And A weighting and C weighting.
Yeah, that makes it, thank you. Huge difference.
Okay.
Why did you go from 65 to 70?
The original, I think, and this is a few versions ago, not just the previous.
it went from 75 to 70, not 65 to 70.
It did go from 65 to 70 a couple of versions ago.
Oh, sorry.
And then it went up. Then,
It's bounced around.
It's bounced around, we're learning.
When you started out with A weighting,
Oh,
which
that's
is a whole different ballgame.
which was, I think, our lawyer recommended A weighting, but then sound engineer recommended C weighting, right? I think that's how we got there.
Yeah, Ted recommended C weighting and did some research for that, it seemed reasonable, and that's it, and we asked you to just
papers.
weigh on that. And he might have recommended 70, if I not to put you on the spot, but, and then maybe we bumped up to 75 as like the absolute max, like you cannot cross this. But people were getting confused by the trigger and the maximum, so with Warren Self the other day, we just sort of combined them into ambient, and then, compliant noise levels are.
Thinking about what Steve said, and I'm not advocating against what he's saying, I'm just pointing it out. The whole point of a special events law is to define what requires a permit that is not normal. And if the neighborhood ambient sound is 55 decibels, 56 is not normal.
Yes. Okay.
Do we know what city of Ithaca has for their definition? Seems as though they would have pretty good understanding of how, what normal, what a venue needs, and that there might be a standard. that
Oh,
we
the
can
town,
follow.
for that one.
Did they avoid the decibel question entirely?
I don't recall. I know I recently read through the town of Ithaca one, and I think they avoided the decibel level specific.
The problem is that we still like the decibel. So many laws are written just to be opinion of the qualified observer, which is the police.
Mhm. Because of the reality, nobody has meters.
Yeah.
So, okay. So this looks, okay. Do you want to go back? Is that all the sound stuff, or do you want to go back to 4?
Right, we can go back to 4, so that was all this
Yeah.
here, and then back at 4 was just that. The operator shall be responsible for maintaining compliant noise levels during the special event as measured in accordance with section 5.
And then we defined that compliant noise level, that was what you guys looked for.
I see you went to 12 days. Was 15 the last round, wasn't
It
it?
was 15 in the last round.
And I heard from Greg today that you were entertaining something that doesn't appear here, which is an exception for events, agricultural events that don't have sound.
Yeah, I mean, that was just something we were talking about specifically after I met with the Stefanskis and said, we're really not trying to limit hay rides and pumpkin, like nobody's complained about those. And I haven't heard from anyone in town that they want those limited. It's a little bit tricky because an ag exemption is a little bit too broad. That's not in this draft at all, but I did mention, what if we could come up with language in the exemption section that said traditional seasonal agricultural events that don't feature live music or something like that. And I wondered if that would alleviate the concerns that what we are doing here would make it harder for farms to get creative and,
And I thought about it a little bit after that conversation, and I think it has merit.
Yeah.
Because if for no other reason, then it addresses ag and markets, objections to a lower number.
Oh, that's interesting.
So that, if we did that, then we could put it at 6. Which I think most neighborhoods would feel like, well, a lot more palatable.
You talked to them about those, do you think they would?
Section right here where it says uses amplified sound.
One second. Do you think, you've talked to ag and markets the most, do you think if we had that exemption, they would stomach a lower number, or would they still balk at the number?
That might be a good compromise.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're very, as you know, they're very hard to pin down on the number of events, but they'll be quick to tell you that they think it's, reasonably restricted, but maybe with that exception. That it might, alleviate, some of that concern.
I'm guessing it would, but that's,
Right.
it's a guess. It would almost have to be, well, they're not going to intervene unless
It's somebody.
somebody complains.
And then the town has a chance just to amend the law.
Yeah.
Well, they do protect marketing events that have music if certain thresholds are reached.
Yes.
So.
Sure. But we would still have, 6 of these events a year. It's only the non-noisy ones that would be allowed to be more frequent.
It would seem to me you're already exempting events that don't use amplified sound. Now you're saying that if it's ag and it doesn't use amplified sound, then it's also exempt for, held past sunset, exempt from collecting fees. You've already exempted non-PA systems, events.
No, that's not true.
No,
We
they
haven't,
may,
because
they
if your
charge
event
fees.
is past 9 PM or you
Yeah.
charge a fee and you're
Right,
breaking
and
the
if
threshold
you
level.
then further go, I like the idea of what's being proposed here, but if you're then gonna say an ag event which doesn't use amplified sound is exempt, you've just bypassed those other two.
Yes.
Yeah, well, no, that I got a problem with.
Well, I mean, that's, we're just kicking around the idea of
Not in the,
making the decision to have that. It's not in this, we're just talking about it.
yeah.
No, but I mean, but I'm not sure I understand the objection.
Well, you have in this draft, there are still three conditions, one of which, one or more must be met. Time, fee, and amplified sound. Now, if you go and say, if an ag event doesn't have amplified sound, by the definition of this, only the other two apply, and they might apply. Now, if you add a section that says, if it's an ag event and it doesn't use amplified sound, then it's exempt, period.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So you're exempting it from the other two conditions.
Yes, that's what we're
Yeah,
talking
that's
about
true.
doing on purpose.
yeah. It would be,
We're talking
yeah,
about adding an exemption so that if
So
you're
that
having
event
hay rides or
midnight.
corn maze or something like that, you are exempt from all of the criteria. That's what we're.
You could run to midnight,
you're not gonna be doing hayride
you
at
charge a
midnight.
fee at midnight to get in.
They're not making
Halloween.
amplified.
They're not making any noise.
They're-
We might want to further,
But everybody else is held to that standard.
if they're making noise.
No, they don't have to make noise.
I'm sorry, it took me a minute, but I did find what the language that the town of Ithaca uses, and basically it's all these devices for making noise, sound, amplifying vision in such a manner to cause unreasonable noise within a building or outside a building at a distance of 20 feet or more from the source of such sound. So they don't
have a decibel.
they don't have a decibel.
It doesn't mean, you know, and that's a subjective
If-
standard that we were confronting when we're doing the
People-
noise dimensions.
Complaining about it,
Yeah,
maybe it's too late.
yeah. Which we're not doing here, but you know. Steve?
I was never gonna like Ted a little bit on this, but on the other side of the argument that. This does seem unreasonably restrictive to amplified music, then if all of these other exemptions are put on there and amplified music is the only thing that's not exempt, that seems pretty focused.
Amplified music is like the main thing that has caused issues with neighbors, so it's not accidental that there's a focus on it.
Yeah,
It's, you know, certainly been the subject of a lot of outreach to the board, so it's not, I
Well,
don't
I
think
think-
they're accidentally.
Well, and the other thing that could be a problem, and it could be added as a qualifier is that, you know, provided that there's adequate off-street parking.
For the ag event.
Yeah,
Well, and I do think Ted brought this up about, you know, on-road parking and off-road parking. I know that it issued on South Danby Road was that there was no place for people to park. So there would be parking on the road. I don't know if we have room to add something like that,
you know, with that,
because on the road parking is very different than
right,
if you've got field that you're parking people.
Use a different example that Steve overlooked. Iron Kettle,
mm-hmm,
they have huge numbers of people and cars, no amplified music,
right,
and it works.
right.
And they walk road parking, and that works. However, there's no rule out there, they don't have this kind of rule at all down there. If nobody's stopping them from going past sunset. But by then their crowd's gone, of course.
Yeah, and it's apples and oranges, there's no zoning and.
Yeah.
Or it's not zoned.
I'm just saying, if
we have some
there's
ideas.
Iron Kettle,
We have some
an
ideas.
Iron Kettle clone opened up in Danby, maybe on, you know.
On
that
Spank's
road
Road,
there,
yeah.
where they have the corn, the pumpkins.
Yeah.
Right, it could, you know, we could hope that some place would prosper that way, but,
Okay.
Should we, Greg, you noted, or some conversation, we noted that we got other feedback from the planning board and BZA that's not really indicated here just because we haven't gotten to it yet.
Right.
We were
What's
gonna
missing?
talk about neighbor notification and public hearing. I think that came from planning board.
And more running the
And
fields.
zoning
But
appeals.
it's in the, it's in here.
Is it in here?
Yeah. It's in here. It's been in here. What number is it?
I don't remember.
The- I'm getting the permit. Wasn't it getting the permit?
I don't
It
recall
got taken
there,
out?
I mean, I didn't take it out. I don't remember seeing it ever.
Well, I wasn't here the other night.
Permit
Because there
application.
should be a combination of
Yeah.
one or more, notification of neighbors, to what extent. Posting on the property, I think that we brought up, or a public hearing, or three, or one or more of those.
Mhm.
But at least just some public notice that there's been an application, it's going to board of zoning appeals.
Right,
So the town board can set those.
section 6F.
Mhm.
I mean, section 6F, the impact of the event on the, no, not F, G,
Wait,
property owners and surrounding neighborhood.
Do you mean 7G?
6, well, I thought it was 6. It's number changed.
It's just the application, yes, we added a section, so.
You
yes, we know that.
that on adjacent property owners and surrounding
Yeah.
neighborhood.
G,
This is a list of things that the BZA can use when they are reviewing the event. But it
for the
doesn't-
application.
Right, but it doesn't require that they or we notify neighbors. The planning board was saying, should we add a requirement that the
Oh, yeah.
town notify neighbors?
Right, well, how else would you know
Well,
It's not
what I
what the
suggested.
impacts are?
You'd have to come to the PZA meeting where they discuss the permit application, but.
Yeah, there was talk about.
I thought that the having to notify, other neighbors within a radius of whatever might be a kind of a owner's burden, particularly if they happen to be in a more populated area. But that posting a sign, like they did with this property being considered for, for a special permit application is something that the word would get around real good. If the neighbors were concerned about it, would suffice.
When you say onerous, you mean onerous on the town?
No, and if we made a requirement of the applicant, that they notify all the neighbors within, 1,000 feet or something.
Yeah,
Is that what they were saying that the applicant should do it or that we should, the town should do it?
Well, in every other instance, the town notifies.
yeah,
But that's also, that could also be this thing.
town sends out a letter,
Yeah,
or
Every
posts,
site-
and or posts a sign.
we do have the information. It's a rather substantial financial cost of doing that in terms of staff time and the cost of doing the postage and all the rest of it, but,
Is there another way, like whether we put it on our website 2 weeks before? Nobody.
we have a lot.
Yeah, the usual methods are just notifying to some distance from the property for neighbors, direct mailers, public hearing, or posting signs,
Mhm.
so
Website,
website. right.
could we use postcards?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just trying to think, we're talking about the time and money that it takes, but this
Mhm.
seems like the business of the town. To notify the neighbors if something's going on.
Yes, yeah, I agree. I think a sign might suffice, but,
I mean, we've talked about the signs in the past, that it also signs. Cause it's not just direct neighbors that might be impacted by different things, but people who drive a certain road every day, twice,
Mhm.
they could be impacted too, so the signs, I think the signs are good.
You
In
might be able to-
addition,
You might be able to get away with it if you had some kind of public board, right, posted right outside of the town hall.
Yeah, I don't know if that's an official.
it is
board,
official,
but yeah.
but
That's official, then and you post it and then you post it on the website.
I know, but I'm just.
some people don't have
done a lot
internet.
of Patience in this and that know
Yeah.
that people near near the thing that's
Yeah.
being approved by some public body.
Yeah.
Really wanna get that notification in the
Yeah.
mail.
Yeah,
So I don't think it's that big of a lift.
I mean, I don't-
To just notify everyone
Yeah.
in 500 feet
Mhm.
of a public hearing.
Yeah.
I feel like I do it every
Right.
2 weeks anyway for
Right.
the planning board of BZA applications, it's become so route procedure for me to do that it's.
and I don't know how the BZA would be able to look at the application and know about the impacts unless
Right.
that's done, so.
Yeah, you want, I mean, the way that this event is being set up and with the go to the board of zoning appeals, it's just that. It's an opportunity for the neighborhood to understand this larger than usual event that's happening. They can have an opportunity to weigh in on it.
Lee?
To the extent that, yeah, it's pretty, I've seen Cindy sit there with, 70 envelopes and she just sits there and stuffs it with a letter and seals it and sends it out. Postage is 74 cents a stamp because we use a service, so makes it a little cheaper, which is nice. Would it be feasible to potentially either pick that, we'll cover $74 of it, you've got the rest, kick it back to the applicant sense.
The town can completely put the cost on anybody that they don't, on the applicant, for sure.
Yeah. So I think that in terms of like what counts as onerous in terms of the town, at least from, seeing how much postage costs and how much it costs.
Yeah.
Just when you're doing a lot of stuff, it can get up there pretty fast. And so if it's this kind of notification, I think it would make sense that would be kicked back to the applicant or at least up to a certain cap potentially.
Or it's like the way a building permit fee is based on the square footage, the special event permit fee is based on the number of people and
No, sure.
whatever that square. I don't know if that sounds silly, but it would tie the price of the application to the cost of the town.
And the potential impact on the population, right? Warren?
And that's 11 in 611 or 6D11. Just want to, we spoke about this briefly. I think anybody worth their salt, a plan for use of live outdoor music festivals, having some sort of basic plan and expectation will help whoever the body is going to do and anticipate the level of them. And I think that's not too much to ask if this is really, to get a sense of the scale, is this a graduation party? Or is this a 3-day event where there's going to be line arrays, a professional sound system, etc.? I think that's on the planner of this event to really have a fleshed out, a robust plan. This is not just a napkin drawing, and it really is you from having to guess how impactful this might be. And it might alleviate you from having to like notify half the town. You'll have a better sense of, oh, this is just going to be a simple event. Maybe the folks that we get around it, that's just fine. Oh my God, there's going to be professional sound, trucks are going to come in here and system. Wow. Might be that we're going to spend a few more bucks on the postcard.
So what are you suggesting?
Well, in that 10, in that D10, so lean in hard on a plan. And when I say plan, I'm talking about a properly, it doesn't have to be professional drafting software or anything. I'm just talking about somebody's at least got a draw plan. And if they are hiring, if it's somebody that's doing a real festival, a music festival, they're going to hire a company. The company can easily generate something like this and then pass it along. And then you have an idea of how robust this is going to be. Where it's pointed, the scope and scale of it. It just gives you a hint to, wow, this is very different than a graduation party or a small.
I like that idea. I would just say that having an example for the public to run off of, apart from this, in an appendix to say, so small scale plan, large scale plan, and something in between as a rough framework. So when somebody turns something in, they have an expectation that they're at least in the band of excellence. And that when it gets kicked back, there's something to point to about why it doesn't meet the standard. And if are there simple examples out there to use? Agreeing amongst yourselves about what that.
I think both of those things sound fine. I don't know that they help us answer the question of who gets the notification. Because we want the notification to go out, well, I guess the application came in, but I'm having trouble connecting the depth of a plan with who gets notified. Maybe there's something there, but I can't see it, and I kind of feel like we should keep it simple as far as who gets notified, just to not make too many steps for ourselves.
In every other planning board and the Board of Zoning Appeals application of a fire public hearing is notifying 500 feet out, so you might get 8 properties, you might get 25 properties.
Depending on where it is.
Can we just stick with, can we follow that as the measure and just do the same thing? Just because it's what people are used to, it's what we're used to, and we can start with that, and if it's really not working, that more people felt like they should have been notified or something like that.
What is that criteria, 500?
500 feet.
500 feet?
Yeah, from the property. For like, and then for instance, as a deviation from that, well, all planning board and Board of Zoning Appeals applications, a little caveat of or greater if the board determines that, this is really big proposal. So actually for the Bald Hill skate park, we did a bigger notification.
Yeah.
Rather than 10 people notified, we notified 45, some people around the area. So, yeah, but I think, 500 would be consistent. When we get to the talking about the fee for this permit, we haven't gotten there yet. But certainly it can just be added that the applicant is going to be covering the cost of that notification. It's just that the town will just, send a bill of here's how much it costs. It'd be one way to do it. But that's getting a little further down. And so that was one thing, was the notification.
Yeah.
And then the other one was that who is enforcing this law? Is it the code officer? Is it the zoning officer? Is it the county sheriff?
Or it could be all of the above.
Did you talk to Guy about that?
I did not, but depending on the nature of the concern. I mean, it could be traffic control, it could be noise, it could be sanitation. Who you'd call in on it would be, the appropriate person to respond to. You're not gonna call the fire department to deal with a sewage overflow.
I agree with that. I still feel like that the law should name somebody in town, at least as the first line of who you're gonna call.
Right.
Supervisor?
All right, well, me.
Yeah, that's my thing, that it would be, I've always sort of been thinking that I'd be the one to enforce this stuff.
Yeah. well,
Maybe the owner,
That sounds like a plan.
maybe the owner should have their number.
Well, yes, it will be, on every application that this numbers are publicly available.
Well, wouldn't that be the first person you call?
Certainly
Your
should.
neighbor?
Yeah, it
It's
should be.
not, I can't require that a complaint is gonna.
No, not required, but it seems like if your neighbor is. Having a Halloween party, that's getting out of hand, you call your neighbor.
Yeah, but I just, from doing this, we all know that there's neighbors that maybe just had a long simmering issue with, and you just don't feel comfortable speaking to them. So you wanna call somebody at the town or in some sort of enforcement capacity to say, can you tell me what's going on, get a permit? That sort of thing. I agree though, that ideally it's just call your neighbor and let's figure this out together.
Right.
And I mean, I also agree, I think that should be the first thing, but I also think that. We're trying to draft a law for when that doesn't work, for when either they don't have the relationship where they can call, or. They're being ignored, or they think they'll be ignored, or whatever. We're trying to, I think the ideal is everybody talks to their neighbors and the town doesn't get involved at all. The next step is what we're putting in here. I'm personally.
I would find it nice though, that if for whatever reason I don't know my neighbor's number, that from an escalatory point of view, if I want to begin by calling my neighbor, the law makes it to where that's as easy as possible. And only if I don't feel comfortable, I have other means.
Well, in this case, anybody within 500 feet has been notified and they probably know where they can get the application, right?
Yeah.
That would probably be in the notification. So the application would have the contact info.
It could be in the notification, in fact.
Yeah, I'm thinking I get a postcard in the mail, I think everything's gonna go all right. And then at midnight,
Yeah.
things aren't all right, and I don't necessarily have access to the town to figure out the application. If it's on the notification though, I can call my neighbor and be like, dude,
Mhm.
it's pretty bad.
If the notification says, John Smith, telephone number, blah, 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 is applied for. For an event and his property, then you've got the information right there. Yeah. How do we get from where we are to the next, hopefully.
I mean, assuming that in the next, let's say 2 weeks, we can work on a draft that incorporates these feedbacks. The other things that we need, we probably need Guy to take a final pass, right? I think he would be annoyed if we passed a law that he had so much changes since the last time we looked at it.
I think it's worth to have that. And then there's a few more things.
I want to hear what they are. I don't know.
Yeah, well. I think it would be worth to get Ag and Markets to review it again. That is going to take, it took them 2 or 3 months last time.
Why?
Why?
Do you move on Ag and Markets too?
Well, or we don't.
I think we should.
We don't.
I'm with letting sleeping dogs lie.
Sure. So they reviewed it last year.
Yeah.
They were notified maybe in September of it. They provided comments on December 1st or something to us. And I can go back to those comments. I think we pretty much addressed them all at this point. And, if we just want to sort of take our shot at a certain number and maybe have an exception. And then if it's, if somebody complains about it, it's not, the town can just revise it if it's necessary.
Yeah.
So.
I'm not sure we got agreement about my suggestion, and I'd like to know whether or not we should put it in, of combining an agricultural exemption for unamplified noise with parking on site, with the, a lower number for overall, like 6. For the other events.
I support that exemption. I a little bit wonder if 6 is too low. I know that we're going back and forth on this, but I'm open to that. What other people think?
I mean, I hope I'm not just responding to a squeaky wheel, but the neighbors were saying, well, 6 would be okay. Well, good, and if we combine, if we could settle on 6. And not so much because of them, but but if it works for them, it probably works for a lot of other people too. And if it allows for what was the main concern about limiting it to, a lower number like that, or what about, these agricultural, it was always the agricultural ones that we were pointing to too.
Yeah. I see a hand up on the screen from Ms. Ryan.
I don't know.
Oh, that's not.
The other thing that I would like to put together, I also see Steve's hand up here, I would like to take a crack at the application.
Yeah.
I think it'd be.
That'd be good.
Worth to review that, because as I put it together, other questions might come up and the Board of Zoning Appeals, that was one thing that was brought up, was all the agencies that should be consulted, the fire department, EMS.
Highway.
It's kind of like as a checkbox, because you see your approval.
Yeah.
You have that letter, with your application. And if they don't, then that's. The Board of Zoning Appeals might then go back and say, you need to then provide it de facto.
Yeah.
So. I'd like to put that application together before.
I think that's an excellent suggestion. And if for no other reason, then, and that was a really good thing that came out of that BZA discussion, was that if we're gonna try to make this a quick process for someone applying, if they can get those things done ahead of time, then they're much more assured of a one-time appearance and not then having to go back and say, well, we need this, this, and this, so see you next month.
I was just gonna talk about the number of events, 6 to me seems very broad. Well, I would like that, it's probably a problem, not clear, but probably a
On a
problem.
month.
6 to me seems very low.
Mhm.
I mean, there's numbers between 6 and 12.
Yeah,
I was trying to find them.
yes.
13 and a half.
I love third.
Yes. That would be a good George 13, yes.
I kind of like 12 because
It's one a month.
the idea of one a month,
One a
like
month.
one thing a month feels like I could put up with my neighbors doing something a little bit too loud once a month, and I know the rest of the month is I'm not gonna be bothered by them. Like, so there's something about that
Yeah.
feels like.
Well,
Yes, but consider
they're
that.
not all gonna be too loud, that's my point.
Your definition of too loud is different than someone else's, that's
Right,
sort
but
of.
they
the
can come
purpose.
to the BZA meeting and say that those events were too loud, therefore
Huh.
don't issue anymore.
Right, you're
But if
saying.
it's limited to 6,
Then you.
then even if all those 6 are not too loud, they're still limited to 6.
Right, and it's worth pointing out the town of Ithaca has no maximum number, and I think that their point is. If you apply, I'm almost positive, someone should double check if I'm wrong,
Okay.
but when I looked through it, I didn't see any maximum number of events. And I think the point is, if everybody can come to an agreement that this is okay, then the BZA can approve it, and if the BZA doesn't feel like everybody's okay with it, then they
Right.
can't. I'm not necessarily advocating that we get rid of the max, but I think that's an argument for making it not the lowest we can, because there is still all these other catches, I
Yeah.
hear what you're saying.
Yeah, but I mean, you were saying, once a month would probably be fine. The reality is we're talking about outdoor events. It's probably, it's not much more than a 6-month window when those things are gonna happen. So if you're talking about twice a month, or,
Well, it could be twice a month for half the year.
well, that's exactly,
Nobody's gonna have,
Yeah.
it goes out in January.
right.
But I think, there's 10 weeks in the summer. So that's an event every week in the summer. For 10.
Yeah.
And are you suggesting that's too high or that's good?
I
The
think
summer.
that's within acceptable parameters.
And,
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
Okay,
again.
Do I hear-
As Steve says, if they're not too loud,
If it's a
you couldn't
problem, they
have-
won't get another one.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
Right, but it
Mm.
seems to me that it's summer,
yeah,
it's summer, it's Ithaca, it's summer. I don't know. Every Friday night, or I don't know.
I think those are good arguments for making it higher rather than lower,
Right,
right?
right.
And letting the BZA determine, the BZA can determine one was enough because all of your neighbors were angry afterwards, and then,
Right.
and then it's one.
Mhm.
Right, so I would lean towards a higher number because they can say.
That didn't work for me.
Right.
Or they can say, well, this was such a great event, the whole town turned out and everybody was happy.
I'm hearing an argument for no ceiling at all.
Yeah, but I think.
Well,
A theoretical argument, but not an actual argument, because I know that people will feel more comfortable with this law
We could start out,
if they know it won't get out of control or something like that. So but I think having not going with the smallest number we can stomach, instead of going with.
right, a higher number, I would
Yeah,
think.
and well, yes, and it wasn't a matter of the smallest number we would stomach, it was mostly driven by the smallest number ag and market would stomach.
Right.
Which is why I was thinking you uncouple those two by having the exemption for the ag events, but without noise. So,
I also realize we're just about at 8.
yes, we are, I'm just about, we have got a couple things left to go, but.
cool.
So, yeah, I move we give ourselves another 10 minutes.
Oh,
What do we have left to do?
The
What do we have left to
DOT
do?
Shared services agreement,
The services agreement.
yeah, so it won't take us more than 10 minutes. Not quite done with this, but close.
2 minutes.
Yeah, we so that's okay. If I want to be doing go 10 and then we need another 10. Do I move 10?
Second.
All right. Yes,
All right, Connors?
yeah.
Dylan?
Yeah.
Larkins?
Yep.
Bruce?
Yes.
Gagnon?
Yes,
Thank you.
right. So do we settle on the number?
What is this?
I think, well, let's take the rest of it offline. I feel like we've picked around enough and maybe we'll get offline. What a weird phrase to use. We'll follow up and
Yeah.
have another conversation before the next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So shared services. This is a highway thing mostly, in event of an emergency. If we have an agreement to help out and reciprocally with the DOT. These are mostly highway events.
Yeah. Isn't it all highway? I mean,
Basically, it doesn't happen very often. It's been a long time, but there have
Yeah.
been times when they're like really bad snowstorms, they get priority to let the state roads. We might have to help them out, keep
Right.
those open. It hasn't happened in a while. It could also go the other way where, we got, for some reason, we got to plow out or. The roads are so bad the crew can't get in.
right,
So
right.
what are the terms?
Where they ran out of salt.
Yeah. It was shared, right?
Yeah.
I have it says, from January of 26 to. Is this a
Good
annual?
year.
Then, so then Laura, I spoke to Laura a little bit about it. She said, the highway would like to make it, a meaningful number of years, so we have to keep coming back for this thing.
Oh,
So like,
not to-
4 or 5 years or something.
Actually, the document that they sent out says 2 or 4 years and there's check boxes and neither is checked.
Yeah.
We should clarify.
just say.
So highways preference is 4,
Okay,
just so we know.
oh, gotcha, yeah.
That's what key for.
Well, so it's 25,000 a year for 4 years? Right,
You're asking me a question I do not know the answer
I
to.
mean, well. I don't know, everything seems to be that in 4 years' time, they're gonna wanna have it be a lot more.
Well, they might. I mean,
Just because things
That's too
don't
bad.
stay at, yeah, I mean, okay, let's lock in the 25,000, if that's the
Yeah.
deal, let's lock it in for 4 years.
like I say, we're probably although we're maybe at a high point in material costs right now, but.
Yeah.
Nothing's ever gonna get cheaper ever again.
No.
Yeah, I don't,
You know,
I would say lock it in if you can.
oh, well, when the war's over, price of oil is gonna plummet back to $65 a barrel or something.
So is what's on the table for us to approve Keith signing this?
Yes.
That's what we're being asked.
Yes, it is. So I move that we authorize the highway superintendent to sign the agreement for up to 4 years.
I second.
Yeah. I'll second that.
Oh, yeah.
Unless somebody already did.
Yeah, Mark already
I didn't
did.
hear you.
Yeah, any additional discussion? Okay,
All right, Connors?
Yes,
Dylan?
Yes,
Larkins?
Yes.
Bruce?
Yes.
Gagnon?
yes,
Thank you.
welcome.
I'm guessing you want to postpone the community forum discussion till next time.
I can say one sentence and leave it at that. Is that I think we should host maybe monthly community forums in this room that are not board meetings. And I'm willing to do some of the work of organizing it, mostly to create a space for people to come and discuss a particular topic outside of this setting, because I think the 3 minutes and the no back and forth can be really frustrating for people. And I think I feel like people want a forum to talk outside of Facebook and outside of like a 3-minute thing. So I would like to try it. And I've heard a few people, actually, Gary Huddle, who's not on anymore, he reached out.
Yeah.
And apparently he had suggested the same idea. And I think it could be good for the community to have a place to have a conversation. It would not be a formal board meeting, but it would be posted. So, any of us could come, but you don't have to come. And if we don't have time to talk about it, I'll just say, send me ideas or feedback on that idea. If you have input on the topic or the format or whatever, and I can flesh it out later. I don't
Yeah.
have anything more formalized than
I
that.
think that's a good idea.
I just wanna say I appreciate that there's some new faces
Sure.
in the room.
make a comment on what you said. 90% of the conversations that I think happened in this meeting probably could have happened at a forum to keep this streamlined another 8 o'clock, so nobody has to do extension.
That's
Well,
probably.
there's that.
That's-
It might be a time saver in the end.
Yeah. So
Just
just a
if they have
general,
refreshments, that would be good.
oh, yeah. So just a general, if people have input or feedback before I sort of formalize what that looks like, reach out to me.
Okay.
Or if you think it's a terrible idea. So I'll hear those.
I don't think it's a terrible idea. I think I'm skeptical as to what our attendance will be. Particularly in light of the fact that we've been allowing more participation in meetings, but.
Yeah.
But I'm open to the possibility.
I would just caution that open meetings law is a finicky beast. And I mean, we've got.
We'll have a quorum of our membership here for.
Yeah, and it can devolve rather quickly sometimes, but overall, cool idea. I will, if you guys want, research and dig out some more.
Yeah.
Guideline-y kinds of things.
Yeah, we can talk about what the guidelines would be, we'll just keep it from, maybe the board members can show up, we have to cover our mouths if it's people.
We're not gonna make any decisions.
Just don't don't make any
Right.
decisions.
Ideas or things to include on the next agenda for the meeting.
We haven't made any progress on the T-Gen thing, but maybe we could put that on the agenda. And Tompkins
Yeah.
Green Energy, the
Hmm.
thing that's rolling out. And since September, before September, if we want to be engaged with it, we have to pass some local laws. So it might just be worth talking about it.
We haven't, like 3 meetings ago, we talked about getting an update on codification, but we haven't done it. Where we stand with it.
Right.
Um,
And
And Blake has been,
audit, we need
yeah,
to
the audit.
update audit activities, yeah.
And correspondence policy, which we keep saying we're gonna come back to, but
I'd very much like to, it's just a matter of whether or not my workload allows me to really.
yes. Well, that's why I keep receding into the distance, so to speak.
All the correspondence is, so I'm keeping you from getting to the correspondence.
Yes,
Quite literally.
that and foil.
Bye.
Okay. Okay, with that, we have covered the agenda and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Good.
Good night.
Meet you.
Yeah,